Hi there, everybody. So let's take a look at the article we have here called the Key Elements of Mythology. So elements means pieces. So these are the pieces or the items, the characteristics you might see in mythological stories. So here we have the 6 of them listed and then a definition of each. I'm just going to give it a quick read for you. And please just take note of what I've highlighted as the most important information you should know. Myths are stories that explain the world and humans' experiences. Mythological stories and characters reflect a culture's past and traditions, and most importantly, tell the story of the values and beliefs that are central to a culture and to the human race. The universal appeal of myths is in part a result of the elements that are typical or common across myths. These repeated elements include symbols, themes, patterns, and characters. These elements help to develop and communicate the theme of a myth. Common themes in myths include the struggle between forces of good and evil, the quest of a hero, and the origin of some aspect of the natural world. All right, so let's take a look at a little more closely each element we're going to talk about. So first one, tension between opposing forces in the universe. So opposing means opposite. It's like good and evil, dark and light. You can even think about Star Wars there. Myths are often structured around the tensions between opposing forces in the universe, like light versus dark and good versus evil. Often the main characters in myths have responsibility for resolving conflicts between these opposing forces. For example, heroes fighting to overcome evil monsters. A struggle for power. So, a struggle is like a back and forth conflict. So the struggle for power in a myth occurs between two opposing forces. This struggle for power may be between two supernatural forces, a supernatural force and a mortal, or two members of a single family. The struggle may be a result of desire for control, vanity, or jealousy. Often this struggle ends with punishment or even death. Okay, some words you might need to know. Supernatural, beyond the natural, so those are your gods and your goddesses. Mortal would be like a human, someone who can die. Vanity means beauty or good looks. So another element we might see is explanations of the origins of life in the natural world. So that just means myth stories were created to try to explain why certain things in the natural world happened. When you were younger, you might have read myths like how the tiger got its stripes. That's a simple origin story. Many myths come from humans' early desire to explain the origins of life in the natural world. They try making sense of the wonders of the world they perceived. Myths often attempt to answer the fundamental questions: how did the world come to be? Who are we? What is our purpose on earth? Because ancient people could not rely on science, they told these stories to provide an explanation about where we came from and how things came to be. Fate and prophecy. So if your fate is believing that your life and the end of your life and what happens has already been decided. And then prophecy would be like a fortune teller or some kind of person who can foresee what's going to happen. That's the prophecy. The idea of fate and its overwhelming power is a central theme in many myths. Neither gods nor humans can seem able to escape fate, despite many attempts to do so. Making this theme even more prominent, many myths begin with a prophecy. This prophecy then shapes the actions and interactions of the various characters of the myth. You'll see a prophecy in the myth of Kronos that we're going to read next, where Kronos knew his fate and then spent his life trying to defeat his fate. But again, if you believe in fate, there's nothing you can do to change it. Supernatural or non-human characters. Some of the characters in the myths are often non-human, even though they possess human qualities and emotions. These characters might include gods, goddesses, and supernatural beings. These non-human characters often possess superhuman powers and use them to interact with our human world by, for example, controlling the weather. Gods and goddesses may also visit the human world by disguising themselves in different forms. And lastly, a lot of times in myths we see a quest. And as you're reading Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, the whole book is a giant quest. Myths often tell stories of human characters who travel between worlds to complete a task. For example, finding someone or something. Often this involves travel between the present world and other worlds like Mount Olympus, the home of the gods, or the underworld, which is hidden beneath the earth and is the kingdom of the dead. So, looking at a nonfiction piece here talking about what are the characteristics or elements we see in different myth stories. So we're going to be referring back to this document a lot when we are studying the lightning thief and also the two myth stories to come, Kronos and Prometheus. So if you have any questions about this article, email me or post on Classroom, because I'm sure if you have a question, there are probably some other people who have that exact same question, so I can help you and get that answered.